it to you, yeah? Okay, I'll tell you now. Yeah? I'll give you my drinks 10 minutes. Yeah? Yeah?
Thank you, man.
Yo, so welcome to episode 5 of the Short Back and Side Show. This episode is called Black to Work. So in this episode, we'll be talking about being black in the workplace. With us today, Doc, Millionaire Mike, Trife, Mr. Blake, and of course, Pleasure P.
Pleasure P. Pause.
Pause. Who wants to kick off?
I've got a story of it's more like being Asian to work. So I used to live in Belgium. I lived in Belgium twice. First time I worked in the European Parliament, and then the second time I worked in a financial services company. I won't say the name, but I had an Asian brethren from Leicester that was working in, I think, IT. And one day he was on the phone to his mum speaking Gujarati. And the Flemish past. So then we come off the phone, he's like, "Hey, I thought you were Indian." And my brother was like, yeah. So then he goes, "So how come you don't do
Allow it.
Wow.
No way.
Allow it.
You're joking.
Oh my days.
Rotted.
Oh my days,
So
sweet.
when my brethren told us, I was vexed. I
Yeah.
was livid for him.
Osmosis, I'd be vexed. That's how.
That's a
Wow.
mistake.
I was vexed for him. But do you know what? It's mad now because I work in diversity and inclusion, and I'm a bit older. I'm seeing that as a case of I don't think it was necessarily an act of aggression, but more an act of ignorance.
Yeah.
And this is maybe where education or a bit of training needed to come in place as opposed to a reprimand. Because as my colleague, another colleague of mine in Belgium say, because I used to say, "Wow, you lot don't even have KFC here." And he goes, "How can we miss something if we've never had it
before?"
So it's a bit like that. If you've not been exposed to a particular type of people or something, then yeah, this is the result. So
It's a very big assumption for them to make, though. It's a big assumption to make. So come out with that.
So this Flemish guy, obviously. Okay, let's try and break it down.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm trying to understand what's going on. Belgium probably doesn't have what we consider to be Indians in terms of the demographic.
no, they do, but they don't have the community like how we have in certain parts of London or Leicester or Birmingham. They don't have they have pockets, but nothing. Because you got to remember, if you look at the demographics of Brussels when it comes to ethnicities, you've got the Congolese lot, you've got the Moroccans, you've got some Turks. Do you see what I'm saying? Those are like the main three homogenous, and then obviously you've got the French speakers and the Flemish speakers. So when you've got Asia, man, that might come from India, Pakistan, they're just tiny.
So what's the Flemish you thinking Indian was American Indian? Like,
Yeah, native
the Mohican.
Indian. Yeah.
I see, okay.
Now the sound makes sense.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
that we
that's what
condone
I'm
the
saying.
sound.
So when he said I'm Indian, he's thinking like cowboys and Indians.
Oh.
You know?
Off TV, basically.
Oh, but it's still a mistake though,
stuff.
because I'm sure they don't talk like that.
Yeah.
And
They've got their own. The Arawaks got their own language. No, that's a piss take.
It is.
Oh my days.
Big
And then-
vial.
And then I think another situation in Brussels, so this was for me back to work. So when you are black and British on the continent, you're an anomaly because a lot of the Belgians and even other European expats, they don't know how to take you. You're not African American and you're not a Francophone African, so it's kind of like I can't put you in a box. And I played off of that because one thing, it don't matter if you're West Indian and African, if you're black and from England, you don't fuck about when it comes to certain things.
Yeah.
And what I found with my colleagues who were Francophone African, no disrespect, but I kind of found them very subservient. Like, yes, master. Didn't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
So I remember one time my colleague had booked a room and she was petrified to knock on the door and say, "Look, I've got the room booked. See what's going on here." Rago. So I knocked on the door. I said, "Yeah, I've got the room booked." I remember this guy, this Italian guy, he was, "Are you sure?" So I just laughed. I said, "Look, my name's on the board out there." So he's come out the room, see my name, and just go, and then went back in. And then I remember my colleague saying, "You're so brave. You're so courageous." To me, I'm thinking that's light work. But again, it's a cultural
thing,
you know what I mean? So I think that was my experience. Like I think when you've got it's not a burgundy passport anymore, it's a black passport.
Yeah, they
When
changed.
you've got that burgundy, when you had that burgundy passport in Europe, it opens doors for you, and you kind of create your own lane, which I did.
Kind of quickly going to touch on that though. Quickly going to touch on that because obviously me and Kilo go back way back.
Yeah.
He knows I come from France or whatnot on the continent. One thing I would say is that Black British people are more confident in their blackness than other people of different
Oh, really?
of other
Yeah.
continental European because like for instance the French, sorry to say this, but were very brutal in their colonialism of Africa, and even when the way they were running the West Indies, the way they were treating them Haitians, they treated them terribly. I've got books that tell you how they were punishing their slaves by pouring sugar cane up to the man them face and letting flies eat them alive. The French were absolutely brutalizing.
Savages.
And also we didn't and it's only until I came to the UK that I saw black people doing significantly better in terms of having their own houses and driving decent whips and stuff. When I grew up in France, unfortunately the man them had very, very low standards. Low standards of achieving. And the French wanted you to think that about yourself as well.
Yeah.
So it's not. So I'm not really surprised. What Kilo is saying is like he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's still. I can't take anything away from that. But in terms of the black thing, just to take Kilo's example, I'm sure you probably saw even in Belgium, you really didn't see any black people doing anything significant, no managerial positions or anything like that.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I moved back, because I remember I got off to a flying start in my career in Brussels the second time around. Like, I was well liked by the French and the Flemish, which is a rarity, because the dynamics of Belgium. I remember when I moved back there, there hadn't been a government for a year. And one of the reasons they hadn't had a government is because they wanted to split the country into two. They wanted to split it into Flanders, which is the Flemish bit, and they wanted to split Wallonia, which is the French-speaking bit. But the point where they couldn't is because Brussels had everyone and everything, so they just said, "Chuck, let's keep it." So I was well liked by my Flemish and my French colleagues, and I was making movements. And then I remember when it came to the supervisor role in my team, I put myself forward, and I remember my director, Flemish guy, said, "I'm surprised you've applied for this."
Mad.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I didn't expect this from you.
Did you give basis for that?
Which part? He was like, "I'm surprised. I don't think you're ready for it." Like, he just shut man down completely, and then from that it was a wrap. Like, he tried put me in another team. Yeah.
So like actively obstructing.
Yeah, brother. Yeah.
It's like stay in. This is your lane. Stay in it.
Yeah.
Basically. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So that happened. I remember. So I've got a politics degree, and it took me 11 years to get a political role. I worked for a London council. I was working with a particular set of councillors, and that was hard for me, being a 6'4" black guy in that kind of environment. It was, you'd have to call the councillors, councillor this or councillor that, and I think that was definitely the first time where I saw not all skin folk are kinfolk. So a situation went down, and where I thought my manager and my supervisor, who were both black, were going to support me. Threw man under the bus. And this happens. This happens for a lot of black people, because I think it's that whole crabs in a bucket mentality.
Yeah.
You'll have that one black person who's in that top role, and they don't want to bring the next black people them up to them because they feel threatened that you're going to take their spot.
Yeah.
And I never see that with other races.
I've had that that's another point I was going to make. Like, how have you obviously found other black people in kind of like your positions when you've got to like into a new job and stuff like that? The experiences I've had, they've been very standoffish. It's like, like that Stephen from Django, do you know, Samuel L. Jackson, like, yes, master, no, this is my boss, blah, 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 and kind of like, not so two-faced, but just like, you're supposed to be working together as a team and you're working against you, like trying to say.
One of the things I sort of see, so like, I think for us as a group of, we've probably progressed in our careers quite quickly, like from a sort of medium to young age.
Yeah.
And I think if we come across another black person or someone ethnic in a higher position, they're probably going to be older than us.
Yes.
I don't think it's very often that we see people the same age. And I think we were touching on this in the car, albeit a different sort of way. But our parents' generations didn't do the roles that we did.
Yeah.
And they didn't climb up the ladders as quickly as we did. So, like you were saying in the car about the opportunity, but also they are learning they're learning the roles themselves. That thing of either leadership or being the authority or whatever it is at the same time as probably someone old enough to be their son or daughter.
Yeah.
And I think that could be quite difficult because they probably went on a tougher journey than we've had at times. In terms of A, it's taken them longer to get there. B, racism, stuff like that. Like, you're sitting here as a D&I person, right? That didn't exist in their time.
Yeah.
So they've overcome different challenges that we didn't have to face. We might face. I'll come to it later on in terms of when we talk about things we have faced. They've set a path for us, and I think there's a bit of resentment sometimes that, well, how did it?
How easy you got it now?
Yeah,
why
'cause
are
I
you, why
hear
are you moaning about this? I had to
Yeah.
do so much more.
But have you? Now let's switch a little bit because I've been in a position where I've been able to employ people. In my and there were times.
Could I just very, very quickly,
yeah.
because I just want to go back onto what you were just saying in the very beginning. And you said about the Indian guy, so I felt like what you said. Do you not feel, though, that although it may have been ignorance, that probably could have been seen as like a microaggression?
Yeah, I think in this now woke era,
Yeah.
that was definitely perceived to be microaggression. But and that's why I had to state, I was vexed. But I think because I've got my D&I cap now, and I look at that situation now, that probably could do with a little education or training. I just want to touch back on something that you were saying, what all of us have been discussing so far about, saying about the whole crabs in the bucket, where there has to only be one of us. I think another reason why that kind of mentality comes about is because sometimes, I know I've been in a situation where I've been with other black colleagues and we're chatting, and anyone that's non-black is seen as a threat. What are you plotting? Like they'll joke, "Oh, what are you plotting?" And I think that's why a lot of companies took a long while to get these network groups where you had the black and ethnic minority group or the LGBTQ plus, because it was seen to be like, we don't really want to have all these people come together trying to mash up the status quo of the companies that they work for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point I was trying to make earlier, though, is this point here: being a person of color and being able to provide opportunities to other people of color. Have you ever been disappointed? Sometimes? When you've willingly you've been able to employ someone that one of the better candidates on paper were a person of your similar sort of phenotype or extraction, and they've disappointed the hell out of you.
Do you know what? Sorry to cut you. So there's one time where I kind of went above and beyond. So one of, I don't know, a guy that I knew basically was working a retail job. Yeah. And I worked, back then I used to work as a train driver, and it was a good number. And basically, when I applied for it, I aced the test. So in my head, I had the formula. Yeah. Now, my friend at that time wasn't very academic, didn't have the formula. I gave him the formula. Said, here's the formula. Literally filled the application form out. Said, here's the formula. And so he went, and obviously with the formula, interview, smashed it. Yeah. And I think for me, it wasn't a case so much so of, I think what got me from that is my natural sense that I want to see everybody around me prosper made me go out of my way, because I didn't have to do that. I didn't even have to let him know that they were applying. There was the job thing was open. I showed him, here it is. Here's what you write. Do this at interview. You will get the job. And what really shocked me was once he got the job, there was a great sense of entitlement, and there was never a switch around to say, you know what, you're my brother. You didn't have to do that because I was working a retail job and you helped me elevate.
Yeah.
Never one moment has there been a pause to say, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you looking out for me.
Yeah.
And for me, that kind of left that bitter taste in my mouth. So why did I take my time, which is our most valuable asset, and invest that all? I think that's probably been one of the most negative aspects I've had from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, 100%.
I think, obviously, I've been recruiting people for a long time. And when I first started doing it, I used to have this mindset that actually, because most of the senior people around me were white, most of the sort of middle-level managers were white. So I think subconsciously, I always try to source black or ethnic. That's the truth. And I have only ever employed, I think, maybe 4 people that I actually know in the whole time I've been in the room. 4 people, that's it. But every time I saw someone that maybe just needed that chance that I needed to be where I am, I thought, let me try and take it. And what I found was that when I was doing that, along with your self-entitlement, they almost felt like, well, because P's on a level and because P's like done the process and all this, I can just DOS. And they weren't performing. And so I got to a place where, which was quite difficult for me when I was quite early on. I mean, now it's not even a thing for me. But I found that quite difficult on reflection, because I was like, actually, it's a disappointment to me. Obviously, we've talked about I went to school and with loads of ton of people and all that who didn't have the opportunities. Now, albeit I made my own opportunity, stand by that, but they didn't have that, and I thought I could do something. They weren't from Tottenham, I'm not saying that specifically, but I got to a point where I just thought, do you know what? It's time to stop seeing. Why am I even seeing color? That's the first thing, because actually, was what I doing wrong against white people? Potentially. And then I got to a place of, no, I'm just going to hire for behaviors now. And ever since I've done that, never had that issue.
What I'd like to say to that, though, is like all the jobs I've had, with that exception, maybe for one, shout out to Yinka Bolaji, he gave me a job back in the day, but mostly I've been employed by white people. My first break, professional break, was by a chap called Howard Beaumont. I remember him. I remember Howard very well. Came out of uni, was looking for work. He gave me a job as a business development manager. Put me on 22 racks when I was 22 years old. So I was like, well, okay, I'm earning my salary. He gave me a decent number, and gave me a chance. And because he had experiences dealing with black people. He was a bank manager in that West, dealing with very wealthy Nigerians back in the day. So he was familiar to some extent with. He wasn't in any way intimidated by me, or he didn't have any preconceived ideas. He saw that I went to uni, so that I was trying to basically get a break, and he gave me a job. And I've always had consistently every job I've ever had. After that was another guy called Alistair Penny. He now lives in New Zealand. Loved his reggae music, and he kind of found a way to kind of connect with me. Gave me a job at JLL, and then from JLL I moved on. I had another job from a guy called Matthew Sheffers, Jewish guy. Gave me a job. So I was quite fortunate, and none of them they've all openly said, like, we never saw you as black. We just saw you as Mike. And we liked you, and we thought that, you had something in you that we can actually help nurture. So I'm not saying they felt sorry for me, but they realized that, okay, this is a youth actually trying. He's trying. He comes from a good family. He's trying to do something positive. I can see a bit of myself in him when I was a kid. Let me give him some.
I think sometimes what happens, some of these people, there's like people that have been on a journey. I think indirectly their route to wherever they've got to sometimes is similar to the perception of ours. And they see potentially a bit of themselves, because like there probably is a conception there that if you're ethnic, black, whatever, you have to work that bit harder to get on. And I think that's something, I believe that myself.
We do. We're aware of that.
But I think we know probably those kind of people, like, it's the same for me. It's white people that gave me the opportunity to be where I am. But I don't think, like you say, they're not seeing it on color. They're seeing it based on what we're prepared, prepared to bring the party, and they know probably from our experience or the way we conduct ourselves what we're going to bring to the table, and that's evident just being in the room, right?
100%. But I also do believe. Sorry, just quickly say there are some groups of white people, like say white Irish. They kind of see a bit of connection with some black people. I'm not saying all of them do, but like the guy.
They had their white Irish had their own journeys.
They had their own journeys
in England. In the like 70s and the 80s, they didn't have it easy themselves.
No
100%.
There has been a shift in that regard. I do think that relationship has declined over the years.
I think it has
between black people and Irish people.
Unfortunately, it has. But shout out to Philip Murphy, who gave me my job that I am now. And because he's genuinely felt a connection between his kinfolk and my kinfolk through the music, through the partners, through the history. He understood that, look, I know what it's like. I know what it's like, have an understanding, if you like. Because my people have also been discriminated against for being Irish, for being considered peasants or whatnot. I can only imagine what you must have gone through, sort of thing. And sometimes we talk about this in our own respective way, but you are right, Kilo. That relationship between Irish and blacks now is almost non-existent. Because back in the day, place like Kilburn, we used to say it was a safer place in London. Because you know the IRA never bombed Kilburn because there was the man them were there.
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? So things have changed.
I think, you touched on a great point in the sense of the opportunities that have been given to all of us, and the majority come from a lot of people that don't look like us. It's nice that they saw the person rather than the colour, but unfortunately there's still a lot of people that don't see that.
It's true.
And I think it's a reflection of society, and it's across different industries. Finance was never for me. I struggled as a black man in finance.
Trying to get opportunity?
Just to manoeuvre.
Yeah.
To the point where I did the whole code switching thing. Not just the whole thing of, good afternoon, Kieran Blake speaking, and then man them a call, I'd be like, wow, Kieran, is that you?
Yeah.
I was doing things like, you all right, mate? Buying the sun. I don't read. But I was trying to
to fit.
And it just didn't help. It didn't help. And I think what I noticed,
it doesn't matter.
What I noticed with that particular job, when certain people who were giving me problems, they weren't from London. Therefore, because they weren't from London, they weren't exposed to man that looked like us and really move.
I want to jump in on something after that.
After you finish, I want to bring it back somewhere.
And then what happened one day, one thing I'd like to say in all of the jobs that I've done, I've never been one where I've played the race card. I've just tried to navigate. Yeah, you see with 100%. Me, I'm quite, like what you see is what you get. And I remember my supervisor, she was from a certain part of East London where BNP used to run things. So from that, I knew what time
you know the baseline, you know the background.
Yeah. So she used to handle man a certain way, and I think also there was a fear of me in the sense of if I say something, or even question what's being done, how I'm being handled. So I probably took a lot more than I needed to the point where one of my colleagues said, "Kieran, can I speak to you?" I said, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, "I think such and such don't like you because you're black." And it was just kind of like, raw.
What colour was that person?
You're white.
Bruh. When your colleague pulls you aside, he's white and says, fam. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah. But this is the thing, Doc, and this is one of the things that I found working in diversity inclusion. A lot of times we as black people, even people, ethnic minorities, will have certain things happen to us. But we need the validation of white people to say that it's happened.
Oh, you smashed it.
And any decisive action to be taken. And I think in this day and age, it still happens. And it's sad to see that. I'm going to tag you.
So, you touched on, I can't remember the exact words you used now. But one of the things I think that we do that sometimes can be misinterpreted in the workplace is individualism. So what I kind of observe is, this is my observations. Yeah, go for it. Generally in the workplace, white people and other ethnicities will look the same, dress the same, behave the same. It's uniform. You can go on third floor, first floor, fifth floor. Everyone is the same demeanor. Everyone looks the same. Whereas, I don't know about you guys, but I'll always be different.
Yeah.
I'll always 200%. I'm one of the ones that started wearing white trainers to work.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. Yeah. And sometimes I think in a workplace, that could be seen as potentially either A, disruptive, or B, innovative.
Yeah.
And it depends on the people that you're
depends
around.
On the workplace environment.
So if you think back to the people that we worked with, I started wearing white trainers, they started wearing white trainers, right? Different things. Now we don't wear ties and stuff anymore. I'm not saying I caused that movement, but someone has to start it. And I think in a workplace, if you've got an establishment that has been away for a certain amount of time, if you're the person that does that, sometimes it can be like, because me and Terry were the only black people. Oh no, there was one other. There's a couple of others, but I think in a more senior position, me and Terry were the only black ones. So anything that we would have done either would have filtered down or given some sort of, I don't want to say inspiration for people to rise up or anything like that, but people would have taken it on board and been like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah,
I can do that.
No one's going to tell me nothing.
I think it's a good point, but I think it also depends on the industry that you're in.
Yes.
And how ingrained the institutions are, because just like you, in surveying, when we were working out in Canary Wharf, we could wear, our understanding of what casual was not wearing a tie on a Friday.
That was.
But you had to have a certain color suit. You couldn't be striped. You had to be navy blue, grey, charcoal grey.
Yeah.
Black was like, you're going to a funeral, mate. What's going on? You know, and if he was a bit too loud, you were considered a bit to be too disruptive. So you kind of had to maneuver within those you know, that kind of work attire. And eventually, he became like she knows boat shoes and all that BS, and then people got really pissed off with it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to go off piece,
Different,
and
yeah.
then they wanted to come in jeans and in a decent pair of trainers. Yeah. That makes sense, like a smart pair of trainers. Yeah. You know, and so we were kind of seeing the industry shift a little bit because there were disruptors, but those disruptors weren't ethnics. They were white guys that did not necessarily go to the universities, didn't have the pinky rings that everybody had. They decided to go, do you know what? To hell with this. We're going to create our own version of it.
Yeah.
And then everyone thought, okay, these guys are really cool and different. If we did that, we would consider to be disruptive. I would believe so. Trust me.
Yeah, I agree.
And it'll be like, you know, sorry, you don't fit in this environment.
You really don't fit here. Now you're coming in and you're doing what others aren't doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that black people do get pulled up on is our hairstyles and stuff.
Just gonna point to it. Yeah. 100%.
So like when I started in the same company, obviously they're not there now. I used to have a faded in Mohican, blended in. It was proper smart. Yeah. I got told you can't have that. Like they phoned me up, offered me the role, and they said, by the way, you're gonna have to change your hairstyle.
I don't know.
So
When you put that down to the basis to say that you're good enough for the role, we think your attributes are fantastic, we want to hire you, but your aesthetics don't work with us. Change it.
With that said, obviously, this we're talking about now. What about your experiences back in the day? Because obviously, it's not been like this. And obviously, when I first started out, I started out working properly in 2001. Things were totally different. So, kind of from like you lot's point of view, what's changed?
I think I think a lot's changed, and Pascal, like touched upon it. The whole D&I, diverse inclusion, in the sense of you're seeing more companies now taking it seriously. It's not just a tick box exercise. People want to have different identities. They want to have positive disruptors, not disruptors, positive disruptors. And I think what the problem was before is you were wanting people to be authentic, but when they brought their authentic selves to work, it couldn't run. Yeah. And that was a problem across all different sectors. So I think you're slowly seeing a shift away from that. Yeah. That said, I think Black Lives Matter and the whole George Floyd thing put a microscope on a lot of industries. Yeah. And a lot of industries had to be shown to be doing things, which I don't think was necessarily the right thing to do, because as we've seen with a lot of companies, they've just faltered. They're not doing what they said they were doing during Black Lives Matter. I think also as well, things that were blatantly microaggressions. We have a name for it now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
We didn't know that back in the day, but we really look at so many experiences and think, right, going on a mad level.
I remember one time I went for an interview, and I've got, obviously, I'm not going to say my name out here, but I've got a very English name. And then I must have obviously gone to the desk and said, I was dressed smart, interview and stuff like that. I said, okay, let me call up the person. Some white guy come down, proper like corporate pinstripe. Man went to every single person apart from me to say, is you? Yeah, interview? It's like, no. We even went to the fucking cleaner rather than me. Just like that.
So the thing is
I did get the job, by the way, but
because of that.
Had to redeem himself. So the thing is, like, for me, like, sometimes feel like microaggressions are worse than outright racism. Because there is like a slow filtering of information that changes people's mindset more so in the subconscious. So they're making the important decisions about Black people and ethnic people's lives in the subconscious realm rather than actively challenging and think of it like. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, mans, but like I said, back in the day I didn't understand it, but now I'm like, rotted. Has anybody ever pulled you guys up and said, you know what, you speak good?
Of course.
You know, what I think to myself, and I used to think, okay, that's good. And then I think, why would I not speak appropriately? Why is that a compliment? Why are you pulling the man up and saying, rotted, you know what?
Because it's not like you didn't go through this education system. You did. You went to school like everyone else. You studied like everyone else. But I think you touch on a valid point, because we don't even talk about mental health as an ethnic person in the workplace. Because those microaggressions happens subconsciously. They don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah, they don't.
And there are times where I'm telling you, sometimes they don't. Like there's been instances where I've been picked on, right? And you can blatantly tell that they're picking on me. And then when you look around the room, I just so happen to be the only Black guy in the room. And they don't realize they're doing it. It's almost as if it's almost as if it's a bit weird because I can't explain it.
Yeah, I do this.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. You'll get your point and you'll get your time to rebuttal. But I have felt that the aggression towards me or the questioning of my decision has been far more intense and directed specifically towards me than the rest of my colleagues who could say absolutely nothing and then, and get away with it. Yeah. So sometimes I genuinely do think, like, I'll give you a quick example before you come through, Kikilo. I went out recently, right, for lunch. And as I'm walking, there's this traveler behind me and he shouts, "Never trust a black man." That's what he said. Yeah, I'm in my work attire. I was like, nah, you can't be talking to me.
Yeah. So that's what we do as black people as well. Yeah. It's blatant sometimes, but our conscience will just say, nah, it's not.
Because there's been many a times where if we were to take a pick to pick a fight every time it happened, we wouldn't be employable. Bro, you won't. Like I would be in prison by now for consistent GBH. Yeah. And this guy is like, and he says it again. So I turn around and I said, "Brother, are you talking to me?" And he looks at me and he stands up to his chest at me.
Just out, yeah.
So I was like, this guy's trying to chuck it. Yeah. And then, so his wife is like, "Oh, don't mind him, he's just had a few to drink." I said, "No, let him say what he has to say." I said, "What makes you say that? You don't even know me." Yeah. And he said, "Well, when I was in the pen." Oh, well, there you go. I've never been to the pen. So why is it that I can mind my own business in the streets of Mayfair? Yeah. You can visibly see that I'm a working black person. And you're comparing me to somebody that's in the pen. And you had the experience of a black person in the pen. Yeah. So in his mind, there is no difference between what black people are. They're all the same. There's this monogamous, untrustworthy, kind of relationship between a civilian, clearly a civilian, and a criminal. You're all the same.
The same, bro.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Tyrone bumped me in prison, so Mike must bump me too. I said, "Dude, I've never even been near a prison. I don't even know what a prison looks like." You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I do believe that there is there's almost like a concern as to whether can you really do this job? Can I really trust you with my resources? Because you come from a country where clearly we have to bail out every year. Every year we're sending money to Africa. No, I swear that. I swear. I think that's how deeply, subconsciously, that's how they think. Yeah. So, you come a country every weekend giving £5 a week to raise your Africans.
My subscription.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think that's where it comes from because they will never question a Kiwi or an Aussie or even an American that way. Yeah. Would they? When you think about it,
no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. And this is why I say I think it's conscious because first of all, one of the things that's changed and touched upon it, the racism back in the day was very overt. Yeah. A man saw you and called you a nigger. You knew what time it was. Whereas now, a man could be nyamming food with you, shake your hand, but in his head, he's like, no. So, in terms of what you were saying and why I was shaking my head, and this is what my problem with working in DNI is. Yeah. I don't believe in unconscious bias. I think it's conscious. I think when we do deliver DNI training, I think what we are doing is making you a better coveted racist. I'm showing you different ways of how you can be.
But between you could say this, that.
Yeah. And no one doesn't really think about it because you're thinking, oh, I'm teaching you to do things better, but in actual fact, you might be making the situation a lot worse. And I think this was why a lot of people were not really on the whole Black Lives Movement when at work, because it's kind of like you've grafted hard to get to a certain point, and this magnificent shift in the world could literally put all the progress that we've done upside down in terms of actually trying to make things better. It might make things worse.
Absolutely. I think Black Lives might have made it way worse. Now let's keep it a buck. How many of us went to work and had to have this awkward conversation in the kitchen, having a coffee? Yeah. So, Mike, what do you reckon about these Black Lives Matter? Oh, for fuck's sake.
No,
it's like you're the spokesman.
I'm not the spokesman for BLM, man.
I remember one of my exes, she worked for the Financial Times, and I think there was a black chick on X Factor, and her colleague said, "Oh, do you know my lady?" And my ex was like, "Why would I know her?" And then you saw the woman have the thought like, "Oh shit."
Why did I say
but you see what you said? It's beautiful, and that's what I don't know if it's just me looking for the better nature in people, but I find it hard to take on board that somebody could genuinely Like the comment you said about about the Indian. I find it really hard to think that somebody could make such a negative statement and knowingly mean it, especially in a place of work, because at the moment it's such a big thing to be. At the moment, it's such a big thing to be like racism. I can't imagine that somebody would actively say, "Yeah, I'm going to see you," and say that and know that. Maybe after they see the facial reaction, then they start thinking, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, you know what, right? I think like as the times have changed, so you asked the question about like, have we seen how times changed? I was saying to Mike in the car, I used to work for a supermarket, well-known brand, and some of the stuff that used to go on there, forget about racism, just the average stuff that used to happen behind the scenes was quite aggressive in nature, physical at times. Anyway, this place that I worked, I was probably one of the first ethnic sort of supervisors or leadership in that place. And I think previously they'd never had that. And all the guys in the same team were probably 10, 15 years older than me, white. There's one guy, he just used to always dig me out, always used to come for me. Every fucking time, yeah. To the point where I to this day, if I see him, I'll run him over, and I hope he's watching. I will run him over. That's how serious.
Let it out. Let it out.
That's how serious I am, right? So anyway, one time, I used to run the online operation, and it was like the last day that we were delivering before Christmas, and it had snowed. So all the roads were icy. All the side roads were icy. So I said, I'm not sending my drivers down there.
Yeah.
That's health and safety. They're like, but Pascal, they're not going to get their turkeys. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about their turkeys. Yeah. I'm not sending people down there.
Lives
I was like, it's hazardous. They can't, there's nowhere to walk. Anyway, so I said, we can cut a deal. We can leave the shopping at the top of the main road. They can come and get it if they want it. It's up to them. We'll phone them. We'll do that. We're not going to just be pricks about it. Or they can pick it up from the store themselves. We'll do that. We'll refund their stuff, whatever, yeah? This guy goes to me, Pascal, really think about what you're saying here. This is Christmas. And I was like, right.
Have a heart.
No, he's like, how many Christmases will you ruin? I said, well, if it's that bad, they can come and get it, yeah?
You think that?
Still got
if they
2
really
days.
want the turkey that much, you get up and come
to
the shop to get it.
And then, this is what my man said to me. He said, Pascal, this is your African side coming up.
Oh, leave it. Man said like, that.
Yes, in front of the night shift manager who was black as well, who was fully African from, I think he was from Nigeria. And he just looked at me, I looked at him, and I said, here's the keys to your van, there's all 12, you fucking do it, mate. And I just walked off.
Yeah, the only thing to do in that situation.
And the thing is,
get a reaction out of you.
But your point is correct about the D&I thing, because the company that I worked for were big on that probably about maybe 10 years ago or whatever. So they were one of the first to do it. But it covers it up, because you're right. At least when he said that to me,
it was
I knew exactly what he was thinking.
What he was trying to do,
Nowadays, I'm still second guessing.
Was that
10 years later? Like, are they saying that because I'm black?
Yeah.
Are they saying that because I'm different? Was that comment about my hair because my hair is curly?
Yes.
Or because of... And
I've got one for you. I've got one for you when you're done. I've got one.
But in a weird, don't you think we can tell what they're thinking? Because
of course you can.
Because we live amongst them.
But to his point, you can. But to
Yeah.
his point, there's now an answer back as well. Because not only have you taught them how to cover it, you taught them how to answer back.
Yeah.
So it's like,
exactly.
oh, actually, I was just admiring the difference between you and my hair.
Exactly.
Okay,
So now you're in that realm of like,
It's so true.
So I must have been working on this project now and had some like outside consultant come in now, and then so obviously in the room just planning how we're going to do this implementation.
They focus on a
plan
white
and stuff
person,
like
innit?
that. Yeah.
we got people for this. We have to say what colour they are.
Yorkshire guy.
Yorkshire
and then obviously it's tea time, isn't it?
Tea time.
So
Terry
tea
went
time.
there, boy.
And so
Tea time.
So
What time is tea time though? I always wonder what actual time is it for?
No, it was like midday, so we're just getting teas in it. And then it was like, how'd you have your tea? And then the guy goes to me and goes, "Oh, it's black as Terry."
You want it as black as...
Oh my days.
No, but to be fair, I can't say where, but they used to say the coffee is brown as me.
No.
Do you know what? If another black brother said that, we're all laughing. Come on!
Everyone's like, "Yes, you're right." I was just like, I was going to say something.
Did you say, you should have said as milky as that.
But you see the thing, you're shocked because you're looking up on it. Well, hold up a second. I'm just getting about my business.
Yeah.
I ain't tried to do no black power or
Yeah.
none of
Yeah.
that. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to navigate.
Man just bought man's
But how many times though? How many times have we
Quite
had
nice too, actually.
various comments or various situations where we genuinely just let it
Sweep
go?
under the carpet.
we
bro,
just-
all
Do you know
the
what?
time.
Because you got to
Yeah.
pick your battles.
All the
Yeah.
You have to
time.
pick your
Because-
battles.
but at the same time though, let's go to a rave tonight and any man steps on our shoes or something, it's a problem.
That's,
Do you know what? Can I
Yeah.
touch on a really
That's
good
fair.
point on
What
that?
I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So, what was really interesting what you said. So, another thing that I noticed is like how black people perceive other black people,
Yes.
Yeah.
and I've seen it internationally and nationally.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a story. A story that always just makes me laugh. So I was at one of my friends was getting married, so we're at his engagement party.
Where was
Lots
this?
of people. This is in London.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of people are all like mingling, we're talking. So a black brother walks up to me and he's chatting to me, yeah? And I must admit, that day, I was looking off-piece. Like I had a sleeveless number on, guns were out, I was oiled up, you know? I was not looking anything like what I do, yeah? So we're talking. And then I always find this awkward. The question comes up of, so what do you do? And I don't know why, but I always get awkward in that conversation.
Yeah.
So I always try to navigate it or skirt away from it. But he asked me a direct question. There's no way going from it. So I said, look, I'm a surgeon. So the guy said to me, what, a tree surgeon?
It's the guns.
Is that hard for you?
Yeah.
That's not even in your mind, and you committed to that. You didn't even probe.
Yeah.
Like another man would have, black guy.
Yeah.
I thought you would have probed and said, "Oh, like what kind of surgeon?"
Yeah.
But he put all his cards down and
Yeah.
said, "What, a
Safe,
tree
don't
surgeon?"
worry.
Yeah, but you see what that tells me? There's two things that tells me. Man was obviously intimidated by you. And I think, and that goes across the board. And this is why I think your ex-colleague was trying to make a rod for your back. A lot of the times they're intimidated in terms of what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
I knew when I worked in finance, most of my team didn't have degrees. They didn't even have A-levels.
Yeah.
They just come in through nepotism, through uncles.
I know this person.
Yeah. And then there's me with my BA degree. I've lived in Belgium. It's kind of like, oh. And then you get the mob mentality. Well, why?
So stay together. He's not taking out.
To add on to that as well, one of the things I feel, I don't know, sometimes
Honestly, it blew
when
my
you
mind.
sometimes when you walk into a room, like say there's a formal meeting going on or something, for whatever reason, I'm always late. But you can see the demeanor of the room change
Yeah.
based on presence.
Of
Or
course.
if you stand up, so you've done the whole being late thing or whatever, you go to make a point and it's either everyone's really actively listening to see like either A, what's he going to come out of, or what's the trip up sometimes.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And the presence thing, I think, is a big thing. Like, I feel that's one of the things I definitely feel like. I was going to ask a question to the group, like, when do you feel black in the room? When do you feel black at work?
Yeah.
And I feel it through my presence. Like, if I'm in a room, you've seen,
Yeah, definitely.
the thing changes when I'm in a room.
There's a book called by Richard Ellis, I think his name is, called The Invisible Man.
Yes.
Invisible Man. It's a deep book because it basically talks about the fact that black people are probably the most visible physical human beings in the world, but yet they can be very invisible in when it comes to making decision making.
Leadership roles.
Things that matter.
Things that actually influence.
And there's been many a times where I've been in a room, I've been wanted to make a point, points being either mooted, not really taken into consideration because I'm the only black guy in the room, and I know for a fact that I'm fucking right.
Or your white counterpart will make the same blood clot point as you.
Oh,
that was an excellent point.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, you're trying to take man for you.
Somebody write that down.
And I'm like, I've literally said that. Or that's not what I meant to say because you're not giving me an opportunity to actually say it. So almost as if you're there for token reasons. You feel like I'm only here for genuine reasons.
Yeah, to meet the diversity.
Genuinely the person for the job, or have you just given me the role just so I can tick a tick box?
So this is one of the reasons why people have a lot of problems with Black Lives Matter when it comes to work, because it now feels right. We've got a quota. We're doing the whole positive discrimination thing. Let's get a couple of black and ethnic faces. It doesn't matter if they can't do the job, but we got to be seen to be doing something, and that's problematic. It's problematic in itself.
We don't want that.
But the thing is like lots of the statistics and evidence shows that black people are doing academically the same, if not better, at school but there's a big disparity in pay between black and other groups.
Yes.
So there is a step there where things are being actively, looked into and discriminated against. And it's kind of like, where can we go? How can we, bridge that gap? How can we get to a place where we're trying to bridge that gap without, stepping out of our zone and, like I said, being the disruptors? And
so you do that by, unfortunately, getting people like me to champion it in these kind of roles that I'm in. Because what you'll find is when you go to a lot of industries, they're more likely to concentrate on the gender pay gap rather than the ethnicity.
Yeah, exactly that.
So what happens is you've got to usually find an outlier or someone else who's gone down that and it's worked for them.
Yeah.
And then prove the evidence to say, look, they've done this and this is what they find. We need to do the same. But unfortunately, a lot of the times when you look at a lot of D&I teams, there's not men that look like you in them teams.
Yeah. Because the thing is when you look at the fact that, the kids are doing, academically well, but they're not getting to these positions, they're being blocked. And I don't know, I find it difficult to say whether I think it's something for the good or for the bad with this positive discrimination, because the system is inherently discriminatory against black people and ethnic people. So, getting into the good schools, getting into universities, getting the jobs, they're discriminated against. So is leveling up, giving those people the opportunities so they can be fast-tracked to those places of leadership, so then that can be disseminated downwards.
But then it goes to what French was saying. I want to know that I'm being given a job on merit, not on the colour
Like my skin, not just the tick box kind
of
thing. Yeah.
And also as well, I kind of feel, because I know from my mum always said to me, you know what, I think more black people need to go down the self-employment route because we go through so much challenges when we're in certain companies and certain industries. It takes, as you said, it takes
a toll on you.
It does, yeah.
I remember my mum always used to say to me, son, go get a trade. Go get a trade. Because unfortunately, I think sometimes the office environment is not good for men that look like us. It's not. It stifles us.
Very poignant point. And I'll tell you why I think it's quite poignant. And there's a correlation with it. When you think about, let's just consider like racing, 100 meters, 200 meter racing. It's a solo sport, and we see a lot of our counterparts smashing world records for days because because you can't hold them back because their performance speaks for itself. Right? Yeah. And sometimes I consider the trade in the same way. If you're good at laying bricks or building yards or plumbing, it's you on your one. No one can argue with it. You can get the job done,
in the pudding,
and you're almost under the radar in the sense that I'm doing a job. I'm doing a good job of it, and I'm getting paid serious paper, and I can just move on. Yeah. It almost feels as though it's a really good opportunity for men like us, or at least people from a ethnic background, to maneuver within those circles, because we all know that the boardroom and the decision-making room isn't going to be reflective of people like us. It's just the way it is. And even if we are in this. Is our decision really going to be taken into consideration?
So do you think we have a role then in the positions that we're in trying to influence the younger generation, in trying to see where they can get to, how they can get there, and do we do enough?
I think it's a double-edged sword, because obviously we have a responsibility that anyone that you come before, you should be able to pass down the gems and tell them, you know what, this may work and this may not work. But sometimes as well, by giving them that information, you're kind of saying to them, boy, this is maybe tough and this might not be for you, and they might think it's a deterrent, so I'm not going to go down that avenue. Because one thing that I was thinking every time, I remember in my last two jobs, I'd get the tube into work. And it always used to baffle me where I'd always see no one that looked like me on the train in the morning. But no other black guys on the tube in the morning. And it used to frustrate. And then one day I was chatting to my mum about it. And I said, Mum, it bothers me. And she was like, son, this is a reflection that more black people are doing their own thing. And that is how they're able to make the money and navigate their own bosses. And don't get me wrong, not everyone is built for the whole self-employed gig. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of graft, there's a lot of setbacks. At least when you've got a 9 to 5, you've got certain benefits. Do you know what I'm saying?
But there's hope, though. There's hope.
Sorry.
Yeah, you go first, and I'll tell you after.
I was gonna say, one of the things I always remember when I first started in HR. Now this person might be watching; they got their own podcast too. But if you remember the incident, you remember it, and it left an impact. So he was a black guy. He was in HR, and he was like the first one that I saw, and he was in a senior position, and he was maybe, I'm gonna guess, maybe no more than 5 years older than me. So in my world, I thought we could talk to each other on a level. So one time I was like, yeah, what's up, brother? And he just turned around to me. He was like, I'm not your brother. Don't talk to me like that. And I was like, okay. It didn't change the dynamic between us or anything. But I was just like, it set me back. And I was like, okay. Because I've heard him say it to other people. So it's not, yeah. So it wasn't like, I was thinking, I've heard him say it to like white people. But albeit I think he knew them before. So that's fine. I understand that bit. And one of the things that I now, since that happened, I always make a conscious effort that, you know what, I don't need to make someone feel a certain way when they've approached me. So when you're talking about what we can do for the younger ones, I think one of the things is understand a little bit that, for them as well, like me that day, seeing him, I was like fascinated. I was like, yeah, that means I can do this. This is someone, from my same area and same sort of background or whatever. So I always now make the conscious effort that I be respectful to what they don't know because they're younger. They're the younger ones. He could have said to me, look, do you know what, Pascal? That's not appropriate or whatever. Yeah, but that would have been very different.
It's a bit arrogant.
But that was like, the way it was said to me, I was like, rah.
Yeah. Like he's the king or something.
Yeah, that rocked me. And it's always stayed with me.
Of course it would.
I agree. And I think that's another thing to mention about Black to Work. And I also want to come up with another kind of discussion later on. The point I want to make, the initial point I want to make is that sometimes there's an over familiarity amongst black people in the workplace.
Yeah.
Just because me and you are black kids,
that's
doesn't mean that you can chat to me a certain way. Or, let's be called you first. Let me introduce yourself. Let me see if me and you are on the same wavelength. You know what I mean? Because you might not be kind of.
Well, I mean, at this point, me and this guy worked together for months. Yeah. It wasn't like, you know what I mean?
I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying sometimes, you'll find that there's this over familiarity because we just so happen to be black. And I think that's wrong. I think we should conduct ourselves with respect at all times until we can forge some kind of friendship where we can maybe, be a bit more matey-ish, if I may say so.
Remember, we're saying this at our point now. Yeah, I was 20 at the time. Yeah. Would I think the same way? No, because I was just starting out. I was 19 actually, 19 at the time.
The other point I was going to make though, and it's a point that I want to touch on ever so slightly, but my concern for the future is that with us now being established in the workplace, we now also have the threat of artificial intelligence coming in, automating things. How much of our experience will we be able to pass on to the next generation where we've got automation essentially rapidly being used and utilized and employed in organizations where our skill set essentially is being automated, where our experiences may not potentially be passed on to the next generation of young people from our backgrounds and even different backgrounds, because we could potentially affect the lives of anyone from anywhere. How is that going to work? Because I think that this could be the last generation of of people that could be working, and everything else is just automated.
You know what I said? I found it really interesting, and I was having a conversation with somebody. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I was saying, I just look at all the revolutions we've gone through. We've gone through many industrial revolutions. Most recently, the technological and automation has always been kind of ramping up. Yeah. But I was looking at the way the world is now, and I was thinking to myself, as time goes on, like back in the day, I could just not have a job and say, right, I'm going to work in retail. And I could get my CVs out, I could walk down the street. By the end of that day, I would have a job. Yeah, I may not have loved it, but I would have had a job. More retail places are closing, they're becoming bigger hubs, everything's switching online. So the jobs that I could get while I was figuring myself out are basically vanishing. And I just looked here and I thought to myself, so there are a lot of jobs that are in their very nature quite repetitive and easy to be automated in that sense. And that is probably the bulk of the jobs that society takes up. So the only way in the future I could look at when I'm postulating in my head, how can this run, is you're going to have a whole breadth of people who, to all intents and purposes, don't work. and there isn't any work out there for them. So the only way you can sustain these people is by literally just giving them like a living wage just for existing. Like, there's nothing for you. Here's some money just so you don't die of starvation. Do you know what I mean? Because when I look at the forecast, I think, there's a lot of things that are going to replace. Now, don't get me wrong. I think with every revolution, there's lots of fear and lots of like, can this happen? Can this change? But I think every generation, I think the people who fail to be flexible and adapt and grow are the people that break and get crushed by it. Yeah. But I think most people will be able to see this as an opportunity and say, right, you know what? Actually, I can upskill, I can develop, I can jump on this, I can grow as a person. And I think it's just having that mindset that will set people apart. Some people will waver, they will break, and other people will grow and reach new heights. And I think it's very much a big mindset thing for that in particular.
But here's the thing, Doc. In this situation here, when that does start to happen, it will be black people that will be affected first, because a lot of the time black people are on 0-hour contracts, low paid jobs, temp jobs, not even in permanent roles. Yeah. What I would also say is, look, AI is here, it ain't going nowhere for now. Learn to master that blood clot as best as you can. Learn the prompts. Because ChatGPT has helped me a lot. And what you're seeing is a lot of companies are saying, no, we're not accepting anything that's being produced by ChatGPT. But what I say to that is, mix it up. If you're going to do something on ChatGPT, put that personal touch, make it yours. And that is how you say, that's how you will go forward, because you've got to not only take the opportunity, but you've got to adapt. Yeah. And I think if there's one thing I'll say about black people, I feel that we are quite adaptable in that regard.
Yeah. So if we just do closing thoughts then on Black to Work. You want to start?
Yeah, man, continue to bring your job off, your ackee and sort of thing to work.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah,
stinking out the microwave in the mess.
Carl, when a man's coming there bringing his boiled eggs, no one ain't saying nothing. When a man want yam tea planting and jollof and everything like that, oh, that's exotic, but you got that, oh, that's well.
Them words, in it. Everybody's heard this.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is,
that smells spicy.
All jokes aside,
put their nose in it.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, just continue to bring your authentic self. At the end of the day, you come here to do the people them work. As my mum would say, you're not here to make friends. You come here to do the people them work, make your money and progress in other ways of your life. But do that by bringing your authentic self to work.
Yeah. For me, things have got better. No one's said anything about my skin color and tea anymore. So,
like I said, if I thought of that when you said that, I would have been like, yes, that's the joke of the century. But woo, that's a lot.
But yeah, as Kieran said, just got to be you, be authentic. Got to just be better.
Yes,
be better.
But for me, my closing statement will be, it's the way of the samurai. Yeah, you got to learn how to basically be the best that you can be in your role. Realize that sometimes you'll be very, very lonely and just be you. Yes. But at the same time, not everyone is against you. There's some really good people along the way that will want to see you win. And they may well be white, they may well be Asian, they may well be different colors, really. But it's important to understand that this is a journey that you have to do on your own. But most importantly, just embrace it. And don't be a pussy, man. Just be brave and carry on, and just bite down the gum shield and just move forward. Just don't let anything break you down, because you deserve to be there. Straight
100.
Yeah, 200%. I reverberate the sentiment. I think we can't pretend that these elements aren't there. We can't pretend that there aren't microaggressions. We can't pretend that there are more barriers for us. And I think I used to remember something that my nan used to always say to me is that you need to be, work hard, twice as hard sometimes.
Yes.
People of different melanin content. So, and yeah, it sucks, but the only way that we can make that change, that real change, without having positive discrimination, all those things, is if unfortunately we go through the coals, we trailblaze, and we get ourselves into those positions where we can disseminate, and we see more positive black role models in those roles to say, oh yeah, actually, rather than just doing all those other things that they try to show me I can do, actually, I can be a surgeon or, the head of a big company. So I think you've got to, exactly you said, bite that gum shield. Yeah. Understand you're going to take some hooks. That's life. You've got to get up and keep moving.
Definitely.
I think, from my perspective, like, our age is probably the middle ground
Yes.
when you think about the elder and the younger. And I think it's within us and through the growth that we've done as a generation, not just black, white people as well, any other ethnicity, to understand the challenges that the people before us had, and the ones underneath us are going to have, and actually try and bridge that gap for people. So I always try to be aware in the first instance, but then be proud of where we are, the things that we've done, what we've achieved, and in terms of the passing it on, whether it's AI that comes or whether it's just a barrier that comes, just be supportive and encouraging. That's the best we could do, I think.
Wicked.
So yeah, episode 5.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram,
TikTok,
YouTube, a lot.
YouTube.
make sure
Subscribe, like, and share.
Need your support.
And guidance.